and welcome back to Her Poison Pen. You can see the background's a little different today. No books behind me, no senior death hanging over my shoulder. But the thing is I'm doing some remodeling in my home, and my office is filled with tools and construction materials. So I thought we would just chat today in my garden. In the last 3 sessions of Her Poison Pen, we've been discussing how creating dark fiction for and about women serves not only the creator, but the reader as well. And that's been an interesting experience. Today, we are going to start on our exploration of the craft of writing dark fiction, writing by, for, and about women. And we're going to start at the beginning. At the beginning of every novel, every short story is a spark, an idea. Now, if you go to a bookstore and you see an author giving a reading, or you go and see an author doing a book launch, you're almost always going to hear an audience member ask this question: how do you get your ideas? Well, the answer to that question is really very simple, and it has 2 parts. Before I get into those 2 parts, let me explain something too. Imagine you are walking in a garden, and it's a lush garden with trees all around, hanging with low-hanging vines and branches, and on those branches are lush pieces of ripe fruit, sweet, delicious, ripe fruit. And it's right there at your hand level, right there for picking, and it's all free. Well, you know what? Those pieces of fruit are just like ideas. Ideas are everywhere, and they're free, and they're exciting, and they're lush, and they're rich. They're all around you. All you have to do are these 2 things. Number 1, pay attention. And number 2, ask, what if? Whenever you see something, wherever you are, it doesn't matter if you're in the street, in your home, in your car, anywhere you are, pay attention, because that fruit, those ideas are absolutely everywhere, and they're yours for free. And when you see something or experience or have a smell or anything, ask yourself, what if? And your brain will kind of fill that in a little bit. What if this happened? What if that happened? What if this didn't happen? And there's your story. It's your story idea. They're everywhere. Pay attention and ask what if. Now, to illustrate this very simple process of finding ideas for your short stories and for your novels, I'm going to use 3 examples from 3 of my novels. And I think they're so easy, you'll just go, wow, I'm going to go out and write today. So the first book is Blood on a Blue Moon. Now, Blood on a Blue Moon is a story about, well, it's about a gal that, let's just take from the back cover copy, she can't hold a job, she can't hold a boyfriend, and she can't even hold her place in line at the liquor store, but she can solve murders. And her name is Schaefer Blue, and she lives in a houseboat on Lake Union in Seattle, Washington. Now, how I came up with the idea of Blood on a Blue Moon was I lived on a houseboat in Seattle, Washington for a while. And one day when I was walking down the dock toward home, I saw this guy on the dock, and he was fixing one of these big blue barrels that they set underneath. They strap underneath houseboats to keep them floating. These big barrels are simply filled with air. And I looked at that barrel for a while, and I asked the guy, do you think a body would fit in there? And he looked at me kind of strange and he goes, "Are you getting a divorce?" No. And he said, "Well, you know what? You're the second houseboater, the second woman today who's asked me about stuffing a body in one of these barrels. You people are weird." Well, we might have been weird, but as I walked back to my houseboat, I started thinking, what if somebody did murder someone in the houseboat community in Seattle and stuff them in one of those blue containers? What would happen then? And by the time I got back to my houseboat, I had the idea for Blood on a Blue Moon. The second story idea, this is for a book that is coming out in September. Oh, I should say, this book was published first by Penchant Press International and was later picked up by Sidekick Press. So the second book I wanted to mention is coming out in September. It's published by Crystal Lake Publishing of South Africa, and it's called Such Lovely Skin. Now, the idea for Such Lovely Skin came when a gal pal and I were traveling around Thailand. We went to big cities, we went to beaches, we went to little towns, and we really enjoyed experiencing the country of Thailand. And in one of the towns, its name is Krabi, we noticed that on almost every single corner, there was a cosmetic surgery place. It might have been a little hospital, a little clinic, a little place where they just did Botox right there in the front of the store. There were all kinds of these places. I mean, more cosmetic surgery places in Krabi than you see Starbucks in any major US city. So we were kind of curious about that, and we noticed a sign in one of these little clinics. It said, "Walk in, old woman, walk out, young woman." And I started thinking, what if you really could walk in as a wealthy older woman and walk out looking like a very young, healthy woman? And what if there was an evil cosmetic surgeon that sliced the faces off of young women and somehow planted them on the faces of wealthy older women? And that's how Such Lovely Skin was born. Pay attention and say, what if? Now, my third example today comes from a book that is going to be released in March, so about a month from now, the end of March. And it's also being published by Crystal Lake Publishing. And it's called Then We'll Be Safe. And it takes place in British Columbia in 1974, and the characters are two young girls who are just about to graduate from high school. Now, the way that I got the idea for Then We'll Be Safe is I also have a home in the Pacific Northwest in a very small town right on the border between Canada and the US. And it's so close to the Canadian border. I live on the US side, but it's so close to the Canadian border that we get Canadian radio stations rather than US stations. So I listen to a lot of Canadian radio. And one summer, there was a story about two young boys, high school age boys, who were traveling up and down this famous highway called the Highway of Tears, and they were committing all kinds of crimes. They were killing people, they were setting vehicles on fire, they were stealing, they were terrorizing all the little communities up and down this Highway of Tears. And I thought it was absolutely fascinating story. And the RCMP were chasing them, but they couldn't catch up with these two young boys. So naturally, I thought, oh, that is a cool story. So I started doing a little research into these young men, and I found out that they were really not very nice people at all. One of them was a hardcore juvenile delinquent, and the other was a neo-Nazi. And you know, I really don't want to write about people like that. When you write a novel, you're going to live with the characters in your novel for a very long time. You're going to be intimate with these folks, and I don't want to be intimate with people like that. But I asked myself, what if they were two young girls? And what if they were good girls, but they just made a couple mistakes and they started running from their mistakes? And being young teenage girls, they didn't really make the best decisions all the time. And things just went from bad to worse and spiraled down until these girls were really in some serious trouble. And what if there was a young RCMP officer who was trying, maybe she was new on the force, and she was trying to make a name for herself, but wasn't getting very much cooperation from the men in the force because, maybe it was at a time when there weren't very many women in the RCMP. What if the girls were trying to get someplace safe, like grandma's house? All of those what if questions and that little germ of a story came to be Then We'll Be Safe. And it's a book that I really, really like and can't wait for it to come out. Now, the purpose of telling you this is, think about it. Number one, just, seeing something on the sidewalk on your way home, a Blue Barrel, listening to a radio program and a news story, or traveling somewhere. Travel is a great way to generate ideas. Ideas for stories, for novels, are everywhere. They're fruit, free for the picking, and ripe. All you have to do is pay attention and ask, what if? And now, as I close, I want to remind you to put words on paper and stay witchy.